I'm Saad in southeast London, where right now it's become dark, or yeah, it is dark right, not too dark, but it's sunset, and it's been well a little milder than the freezing weather we've had a little while ago. With me, as usual, is Gregory. Gregory, how are you, and how is the weather where you are?
One is fine. The weather just like you have in London.
Okay, very good. So, dear listeners, as I said, this is a spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. And every week we have a topic for discussion. The topic tonight is Love Your Neighbor as Yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself, or the Old English, love thy neighbor as thyself. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abdushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the readers again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter of fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for discussion tonight is love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is a quote from Jesus in the Bible. In fact, it is also in the Old Testament, in Leviticus as well. So it's one of the, you could say, the commandments from God. So yeah, we're going to explore that. So I just want to remind you, if you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on, and you're in UK, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And the one alternative way you can contact us is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is Bless Radio. Now, Gregory, as you know, I like to always look up the meaning of the words in the topic. So again, the topic is love your neighbor as yourself. The first word there is love. So I looked up in the dictionary and I found 2 meanings there. The first one, it says, they gave an example of that. Babies fill parents with feelings of love. So I'll just repeat that definition, an intense feeling of deep affection. How's this definition, Gregory?
The definition is fine. However, it doesn't give the essence of what love is on a spiritual basis. For it is spiritual love that is referred to.
Right. Thank you for that. Okay. Let me try with the second meaning, but I have a feeling I know what you're going to say about it. So let me, the second meaning I found in the dictionary, it says a great interest and pleasure in something. And again, they give an example, his love for football. What about this one, Gregory?
That is more of an attraction for football. Whether an attraction is at the same time love is a different story altogether, because it's more of an affection for football.
Right. Yes. I mean, they're saying interest in something, so pleasure in something. So, yes. I mean, they look all specific. I can see that. And you have given that the love we are referring to for this discussion, it is a spiritual love. So it seems definitely not earthly things. Okay, so we have to go. I think, Gregory, we won't go into the depth of it right now, what we mean by love. Let's keep talking, discussing, and see where it goes. And hopefully we will really find the true meaning of love in this our discussion. Okay, or spiritual love, let's say. Okay, now, I didn't bother to look up the word your, because I think we know what it means. Love your, or whatever your is. It's some, so I haven't bothered with that one. But the next keyword I looked up was neighbor. And again in the dictionary, I got two meanings there. The first one, a, a person living next door to or very near to the speaker, or the person referred to. So there's three meanings there actually. A person living next door or very near to this, or very near to the speaker, or to the person referred to. How is this one, Gregory?
Again, neighbor, it is appropriate when one is considering someone nearest to you in the physical sense, for instance, distance. However, it doesn't cover what neighbor is, because in a non-distance concept, anyone who has, say, similar sensing can also be your neighbor.
Okay, so you're saying somebody who has similar concepts. Okay.
Or homogeneous type of sensing can also be a neighbor, because that person, you're able to perceive that particular individual, not with your eyes, but your senses, some nearness of someone whom, okay, you cannot see. Your brother who is maybe 5,000-10,000 kilometers away can also be your neighbor when you have a deep sensing to speak to him. Or people of similar tendencies in education, in music, they consider themselves as neighbors.
Thanks a lot again, Greg. Thanks a lot for that, Gregory. I'm just, yes, again, I'm seeing this is like a spiritual meaning rather than a physical, as you just reminded us there. I want to just give me, okay, I'll ask, can you just give me one moment, please? Something's just, I need to deal with, just one moment. Sorry, I'm back now. Apologies for the gap there. So what I'm seeing, Gregory, from what you've been saying there has to be a spiritual understanding of these concepts of love and neighbor, and then love your neighbor as yourself. And even just immediately as you reflect on it, you can see that they cannot be taken literally in any way, because neighbor, as you said, can be far, far away. It can be anyone with similar sensing as you, or even I'm thinking there can be a scenario where two people are brought together, or more than two people are brought together, and which they don't know, they're a stranger, and it could be, you can sense something that might be required there, So it's such a wide concept that you can't really almost define it. So it's just because what we're dealing with. So okay, I want to do now, Gregory. Let's look at love in how can I say? Could you say, Gregory, if you give love to a person or any people, or like that, in a scenario, is that like means helping that person, or appreciating the person, or caring for this person? Can we try to give a little bit more understanding about this word love?
Well, thanks for that question. Most of the time, the concepts which we hold about a particular occurrence, a particular scenario, a particular process, it is that concept that either limits our perception of it or opens our perception of it. In the discussion about love, the concept of distance, which one now attaches to one's neighbor, is, strictly speaking, unimportant. For that which is important, which has real consequences for the upward striving of the individual or the downfall of an individual, is basically how that individual applies these concepts, which concepts should resonate with the laws of creation, of nature. Whenever love is discussed, an activity must be considered. If that activity is of benefit not only to the giver, but also to the receiver, if it's of benefit, of spiritual benefit, because only that which is of upbuilding spiritually, strictly speaking, only that can an individual classify as love. If along the line, spiritual benefit or benefit of the individual, both the giver and the receiver, are not considered, then it is not love. It is, like Paul would say, like a cymbal, a sounding cymbal, but that which resonates deep within spiritually is lacking. Therefore, one should not tie oneself to the pettiness which had been thrown around for a long time. The example, the scenario that Christ gave, explains it all, where he then turned round and asked them, of these, who is his neighbor? That concept should be well taken in, and hopefully many a person should follow that. That alone will open the path for continuity.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for that. I can see how we are expanding this understanding of the love or spiritual love, that concept. And each time we pick a word to try and make sense of the word love, like say help or appreciation or even care, or let's say even advice, let's say they all have a part, they give part of the picture of love in maybe one scenario, but the word love is so massive that you'll never get the proper meaning in that way. So I really get what you're saying there. And also when you mentioned about who is my neighbor, as Jesus asked, that already gives you the clue. Yes, somebody, the neighbor, you might say immediately, oh, the person next to you. But then, oh, somebody who needs help, who happened to fall on your path, that could be, they don't need to say something to you. You already can see something is needed, and then you act accordingly. So really, it's us human beings have to interact with the situation or with people around us in life, and that's and then everybody, in theory, basically from that way, everybody can be your neighbor. So yes, thank you for that. What I was thinking now, Gregory, I'm going to read from the Bible where this, because that's where this the topic has come up actually, and there are two places where it is said, "Love thy neighbor as yourself," or "Love your neighbor as yourself." The first place it is in the Old Testament, which is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, where in that particular chapter, Almighty Father God is speaking to Moses about the laws. So this is, in a way, there are 10 commandments in there as well, although it doesn't mention directly 10 commandments, but there are laws that the Lord is speaking to Moses about. So I would like to read that out. I'm just thinking I should read it in a way from the beginning, and that will, then it'll fall into place more easily rather than just quote one line. So let's do that. So this is Leviticus chapter 19, and it is titled Various Laws. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the entire assembly of Israel and say to them, be holy, because I, the Lord God, am holy. Each of you must respect your mother and father, and you must observe my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. Do not turn to idols or make metal gods of yourselves. I am the Lord your God. When you sacrifice a fellowship offering to the Lord, sacrifice it in such a way that it will be accepted on your behalf. It shall be eaten on the day you sacrifice it, or on the next day. Anything left over until the third day must be burned up. If any of it is eaten on the third day, it is impure and will not be accepted. Whoever eats it will be held responsible because they have desecrated what is holy to the Lord, and they must be cut off from their people. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard a second time, or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner. I am the Lord your God. Do not steal. Do not lie. Do not deceive one another. Do not swear falsely by my name, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Do not defraud or rob your neighbor. Do not hold back the wages of a hired worker overnight. Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind, but fear your God. I am the Lord. Do not pervert justice, and do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. Do not go about spreading slander among your people. Do not do anything that endangers your neighbor's life. I am the Lord. Do not hate a fellow Israelite in your heart. Rebuke your neighbor frankly, so you will not share in their guilt. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. My decrees. I'm going to stop there. So that is from Leviticus chapter 19, from the beginning, verse 1 to verse 19. So, Gregory, there's a lot of commandments that the Lord is telling Moses to pass on to his fellow Israelites. And there's a few mentions of the word neighbor there, what you about what you should not be doing or how you should be acting, let's say. And was mentioning a lot of things which are, you can say, are not good things to do to your neighbor. I will just actually refer to them, and then we can talk about those. So, do not defraud or rob your neighbor. That's the first one I saw there, which I suppose it should be very obvious that you don't cause pain or, I mean, that's the same as stealing, really. It says, yeah, rob, do not rob from your neighbor. So it's the same thing. So this is obviously should be very clear. The another one I'm seeing here, it is, do not go about spreading slander among your people. So that is like bringing a bad reputation through gossip or such means, you know, again, that is harming. And then do not do anything that endangers your neighbor's life. And then also, let's just look at those ones for now. I just want to pick them because they concern the neighbor. So, Gregory, it looks like there, Gregory, there's something responsibility I'm seeing that is necessary for us human beings to our fellow human beings in reference to stealing or defrauding, in reference to spreading slander and endangering your neighbor's life. So I know that this may not sound like love on the surface, but underneath there must be some love behind it. So, Gregory, what would you say is why is the Lord saying these rules or maybe laws to Moses to pass on to his fellow Israelites?
Very simply, the concept of the other personality was not well understood, even at that time, just as we have it today. That concept of the other person other than oneself is still not very clear. And Moses had to patiently, again and again, show it to them what true concepts, through his examples, what the other person who is referred to as neighbor means. But even before one talks about what Moses was doing, look at the word or the expression neighbor or the other person. Has it ever occurred to anyone that he himself or herself could be its own neighbor? Many a time, this is never considered. Just as he himself or herself could be his or her own neighbor, striving after that which should be of benefit to it, to be of benefit to it in deeds, striving after that which should be of benefit to it in thoughts, and above all, striving after that which should be of benefit to it intuitively, that is in spirit. These three different categories, once they resonate, then the human personality makes great strides in its maturity. Now, carefully look at the so-called Star of David, or what's in modern Israel they said is the star which is put on the flag. In that, you find there are two triangles. One triangle, the point pointing up. The other triangle that is connected to the one pointing up, pointing down. That which is of benefit, which is good, comes in threes. And one had just mentioned the three things that are necessary. And in that sign, as it is up in paradise, so should it be down here in the world of matter. It is all the task for anyone who strives after that which is of benefit in deeds, in thoughts, and in spirit, to ensure that just as they themselves are striving after that which is of benefit in these three different categories, so also are others. And since they desire or strive after that which is homogeneous, that means they have the same goal. Now one has the attraction of homogeneity coming together, love. They must extend it to the other. That's what the other, which is now referred to as thy neighbor. That has always been what the light strives to teach men. It's not tied to nations. It's tied to the individual striving to ensure that he or she supports first himself, and at the same time understanding that he or she never walks alone. There are others whom he or she can perceive with the five senses. There are others who are not perceivable with the five senses, but can be perceived in spirit, homogeneity. In that case, these also are his or her neighbors. Just as he himself is blessed with the power that streams from on high, such that he can strengthen himself and achieve clarity, so also is he to assist for those who have not yet had that clarification. No nation is required for this, just the individual. That is all that the light requires from those who have that claim that they understand the workings of the Lord Almighty. For these workings always resonates in accordance with the laws of nature, which laws of nature at the same time are the laws of creation or spiritual laws, which are a manifestation of the divine will, which divine will resonates with the love of the Almighty, personified by He Himself, Christ Jesus. That is all that the light requires. Hello?
I'm sorry. I've been talking and I didn't know I was not on, I was on mute. Apologies. Thanks, Gregory, for what you have explained and the picture that you've painted about how Moses was passing on, you could say, the laws or the rules which human beings have to live by. You know, how it might be focused for the Israelites, but actually it's all human beings that we have to live in a way which benefits everyone. So these laws are not for a nation, but for individuals as well, really. So there's a lot to, how can I say, realize the depth of what these what those rules that we are, what is behind these rules, let's say. You know, it's meant for our spiritual growth as human beings. We're going to go further into this in a moment. I just want to let the listeners know that this is Blessed Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 647-841-958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one, .com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And as I've said, we are broadcasting on blessradio1.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, that's the number one again, space, live stream. That is for the live show, which is we broadcast on Tuesday evenings, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. You can also listen to a recording of this show, again on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, that's the number one again, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is Love Your Neighbor as Yourself. And of course, you can listen to a recording of our previous shows as well on YouTube. And lastly, we are all broadcasting on another website, which is Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number one again. Now, Gregory, there's a lot that you have told us already about how we are meant to act in, you could say, through deeds, through thoughts, and through the intuition, and there should be all these three forms of activity must align, in the same way, if I can say that way, rather than contradictory ways. So, because you can have your intention, if you can look at the or motive, to do some action, and on the surface, it might look you're helping someone, being polite and outwardly nice, you can say, and underneath your real intention is to harm or mislead them. So you can see there's a conflict there. There's something beneficial on the surface you're doing, but underneath it, your intention is to harm, which obviously is a conflicting way of acting. In between we have thoughts as well. So you can see, and then you think, okay, if you reflect on that, what will be the outcome if you act in this way, which is conflicting? And then what would be the outcome if all these intuition, thoughts, and the deed, the physical action, you can call it, are not are aligned, So, in a way, you can see clearly that the result should match with what, according to what's the total of these, if I can use the word total, the interaction of all these three ways of acting. So, that it should be like common sense, so sensing of that. Now, so Gregory, I'm thinking now, what we have read there from Leviticus 19 was the physical, well, maybe I was wrong, but from what I was reading, I was getting physical rules of acting. Was there something, maybe I missed that, is that because I know it is like in today's world we think about thoughts and intuition and also the physical actions, but maybe, Gregory, in those days, do you think in those days, Gregory, they would have understood, the people would have understood that's what is being said to them, that there are three ways of acting? Or would it be only they would have just understood only the physical actions?
Depending on the state of maturity of the individuals at that time, you will have that person, Moses, who in the first case received these laws spiritually before carving them, putting them in stone, and the only way to show them what is meant, after all, they had not gone to any school, was to show them through examples and with very kind words. So most of these were started in deeds, such that subsequently in practice by the individual, the thoughts will gradually awaken and take firm roots within the individual. And in practice, in thoughts, subsequently, these thoughts would trigger in a reciprocal manner that which will touch one's intuition, which then relates to one's spirit. That is the way Moses started, very gradually, showing examples in deeds, examples in thoughts, and hopefully some will pick it up intuitively. So, as it was then, it is still the same examples, just as Christ showed the examples through his activities in calmness and even in thoughts. The advice which he gave, that explains it all, how things should be.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for that. You mentioned Christ, and so I would like to now go to what Jesus said actually about love thy neighbor as yourself, or love your neighbor as yourself. And this time I'm going to read from Mark chapter 12, verse 28 to 34, verses 28 to 34, Mark chapter 12. And the heading there is the greatest commandment. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked him, "Of all the commandments, which is the most important?" "The most important one," answered Jesus, "is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." "Well said, teacher," the man replied. "You are right in saying that God is one and there is no other but him. To love him with all your heart, with all your understanding, and with all your strength, And to love your neighbor as yourself is more important than all the burnt offerings and sacrifices. Just to be clear, that was Jesus replying after the man replied. So, and I think I'm going to repeat that. So, just to be clear, so Jesus, because Jesus replied, uh, "You are right in saying that God is one, and there is no other but Him. To love Him with all your heart, with all your understanding, and with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself is more important than all the burnt offerings and sacrifices." Apologies, I myself have got confused when I'm reading this, so but I'll continue. When Jesus saw that he had answered wisely, he said to him, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." And from then on, no one dared to ask him any more questions. So I'm a bit worried. I've confused people when I read that, and I apologize because I myself didn't understand what I was reading correctly. So I'll just say in brief, Gregory, uh, Jesus was saying that Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus replied that love your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind and with all your strength. So that is the greatest love that you can have. And then the second one is love your neighbor as yourself. And above that, above these two, there is no other greater commandment, which the person who asked him, Jesus, this question understood very well. And then Jesus uh, um, uh, responded that he answered wisely. So, and then you are not far from the kingdom of God. So this is you could say, the reward for understanding God, God's law and God's love are right. And even it looks like the people in this temple understood that, how Jesus explained and replied, that nobody dared to ask any further questions. So that shows that they must have understood something there. So what I want to ask from this, Gregory, um, it looked when Jesus replied here, with all your mind, with all your soul, and all your heart. Now those three things that you mentioned about the actions, the physical action, the deed, the thought, and the intuition, I think they are reflected in these words by Jesus here. That's where it's expressed there. So, he might not have used the word intuition, he might not have used the word thought or the word deed, but he gave that picture in this way. So, anything you'd like to add or say something there, Gregory?
Well, you have said it all.
Okay.
When
Yes.
one considers that the question was, which is the highest? They didn't say which is the highest two, which is the greatest. So why was the second one there to talking about the love for man? The love for the Almighty is different from that of love when one is referring to the human personality. For that which is of the Almighty has life within itself, has power within itself. Without Him, without the radiation power of the Almighty, the human personality does not exist. Therefore, to be able to exist, to be able to continue one's existence, it's imperative that the vibration of the human spirit must be so great as to be able to absorb the vibration power that streams out of the Almighty. Because that vibration power is life. Whoever in their activities is able to absorb it feels attracted, is attracted. Actually, that word or that expression, love, one can already see an attraction, a moving closer to that which is alive. These things are self-imperative, that not much explanation is needed. And that was one of the reasons why when Christ spoke, himself being the personification of divine love, all that they there needed was granted to them.
Thanks again, Gregory, for this, what you've pointed out there. What I'm getting now is love can really only be grasped spiritually and not in any other really in earthly way. You can see earthly examples of expression of love, but to really understand, because we're talking about understanding, you can't really speak it in words in a way. You can only see it with your, you could say, in the spiritual eyes, or through the examples of actions. And then, so rather than say, oh, love means this or love means that, where you get, how can I say, put into a box, you put the meaning of love in a box, and then you cannot, and then you, let's say, get stuck when you try to look at another example and say, oh, it doesn't apply in that case. But that, because love is so all-encompassing, yeah, we can't put it into a box to say it's just this or it's just that. So yeah, so thank you for that. I just want to remind the listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Upbrushing. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, that's Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's another way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, that's the number one, .com. If you scroll down on the homepage, you will see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And as I've already mentioned, we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number one.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number one again, space live stream. That is actually for our live show, which is again broadcast on Tuesday evenings, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. You can also listen to a recording of this show on YouTube the next day. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again that's the number one, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is Love Your Neighbor as Yourself. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. Again, that's the number one there. Now, Gregory, we're talking about love your neighbor as yourself. So it's like giving love to your neighbor, which we already said can be any person really that comes in our path. Now, what I was wondering there, should this love be given, when we use the word love, and then let's say you think of it as a help, whatever the way the help is, okay? Should this love or help, I'm putting it that way, be given to your neighbor, which we have said but even if that neighbor is unfriendly or hostile, or whether they deserve it or not. So I'm saying, should the love be given to your neighbor in all scenarios, or is it conditional? So yes, and yeah, if you can just say something on that. Should love be given in all scenarios to our neighbor, whether friendly, unfriendly, or hostile, whether they deserve it or not?
A simple example or scenario which one can paint, which is common to all, is that consider many a person in the arts composes music, so beautiful a piece of music, and is out there in the public domain. And even this personality has since passed on. But that which he left behind, which gives many a person not only pleasure, but deep reflection, the opportunity of deep reflection. Does this really mean that that person likes, the neighbor, whatever one cares to call him, likes the person or not? That which is put out there, which is of benefit, the one who wishes to make use of it will strive after it, to hold it in its hand, whether it be a piece of music or support rendered by another. Many a time it is that many of some other person who has resources now sits in judgment, not in judgment about the other person, but in judgment over himself, whether he can give or whether he doesn't wish to give. That is now left to the intuition of the giver. So, if the giver wishes to pass judgment as who is worthy enough to receive his gifts, then that judgment is for himself and himself alone. As to the person who desires or not desire, the simple scenario can be put forward. Oxygen is available to all. So you have the scenario that the individual merely strives to make use of oxygen. The Lord Almighty, through the activities of those responsible to ensure that oxygen is available, did not discriminate and say, okay, you will breathe in oxygen. You, for your sins, you are not good enough. You shouldn't breathe in oxygen. Should the individual wish to act aright, then it must be just as he himself was able to receive of this gift. The need is there to make use of this gift and extend it to others. For that is the task of each human personality.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. And again, the picture you've painted there. What I'm seeing there, there is, let's say, love benefiting all. Like you said, with the oxygen or air, which is available to all. And it won't be withdrawn, whatever whether you do good or you sin, or good or bad, let's say. Then there's something you can call it individual, maybe you can call it with the judgment or being made, but with the use of the intuition. So it's up to that individual to say, I wish to give this love or not. It's and each one will have, the consequence according to that. So, because it's not what I'm seeing, Gregory, there's not an obligation that one must help another fellow human being when it's an individual case, when you are saying like that, it's a choice. That's what I'm seeing, what you're saying, for a free choice to say, yes, I'm willing to do it, whatever it is that they think that needs to be done, and so there should be no sense, how can I say, thinking by a person that, oh, this person owes me a favor, or vice versa, whatever way somebody might think. It's a choice. If somebody says, yes, I will do it, or they can decide not to do it, it's their free choice, and there should be no judgment on that, why, whatever reason they made a decision to do yes or not to do something. And the recipient of that, whatever that wish was to do something, or thought of doing something, mustn't have expectation either to say, oh no, he owes me, he must give me what I want. So it's with this way, Gregory, what I'm saying is the situation is looked in a neutral way. You're not biased to one way or biased to that way. It's you act freely, and then each person can't demand or can't expect, or they may think that or they might think that way, there's some expectation or have some demand, but in reality, it's a free choice. So That's what you have just painted there, Gregory. I can see now. And it's neutral. The picture is quite neutral and not, these demands that people might be thinking that they have some demand or right to expect or to give, no, it's not like that. It's a choice. So thank you for that. Now there was something else in Leviticus, because there was a lot of laws that God is telling Moses about, and as I was reading, I was realizing there's so much we have to go sort of one by one if you're going to look at it. So this one, let me just make sure I have it in front of me. Okay. Yes, so this one is from Leviticus again, chapter 19, but the verse is 18, and it says, "Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." So, Gregory, it says, "Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." So now, Gregory, if somebody treats you unfairly, what are you meant to just ignore that, or are you meant to act? Because if you don't act, somebody can continue to do that, and actually, I'm looking at it. It says, "Do not seek revenge." Revenge doesn't mean revenge does not necessarily mean or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. So I'm just trying to think of a scenario where that could be happening, and so I'm just wondering. So, Gregory, let's say somebody harms you. Are you supposed to respond in like in a same way back, or how should you respond? That's what I'm wondering. If somebody harm you, and but yeah.
Someone harms you.
Yes.
What was the motive behind the harm?
I don't have that in my scenario right now. Maybe
well,
you can
therein
you can
lies
pick
the
something.
challenge.
Yes, yes.
It is the motive that expresses, that determines the reciprocal activity. So you will find a personality that has done some harm to you without any ill motive, maybe knowingly or unknowingly. The returns to that particular individual is different from another individual who perpetrated some harm knowingly in deeds, knowingly in thoughts, and knowingly in his intuition. Such will now result to some binding in these three categories. However, such bindings where the individual, to become free, we have to loosen itself, will have to untie the knots it has tied through such activity. Such will be that he himself or herself will sooner or later, here or hereafter, have to go through such scenarios. If, however, you, in your own deeper knowledge, severs that connection, then you are free to move on without being bound or connected to that person. The lessons to be learned is that of vigilance. So the human personality must be so vigilant and alert so as to ensure that first, he himself does not, through his activities, permit others to inflict such a harm on himself. That calls for continuous vigilance. Vigilance in deeds, vigilance in one's thoughts, vigilance in one's deeds. For even before this harm become recognizable in deeds, before they manifest in deeds, the individual can prevent it through his or her activities in striving after that which is of purity. Most of the time, consider the way people think, how petty they could be. Consider the deeds they engage in, how petty could be, which does not bring any benefit to them in deeds, but drags them down. Even their thoughts drags them down. And then when one considers their intuition, they are of low vibrations, so heavy that any fresh activities that will enliven the spirit is severely minimized. So what should one expect from such? The ability to be very vigilant intuitively is reduced, also in his thoughts and also in deeds. Whereas for some individual or some group of individual who are very much alive in their intuitions, which is aligned to their thoughts and subsequently aligned to their deeds, they are always on the alert. And many a thing that would have caused many a terrible catastrophe are avoided in good time. So you will find vigilance is the way to go. Vigilance in deeds, in thoughts, and in one's intuition. Else, if one of them is lacking, one is still subject to attacks from any of these different categories. So, if you have the scenario where one is vigilant and alert and strive after that which is noble, that which is ignoble, the frequency of occurrence will diminish subsequently.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. Now, a listener has sent in a comment, I will say, or even a question, um, and I'm just trying to see. Uh, yeah, let me say what they've said, and then I'll try to get a question from it. So they say, can you explain to the listeners the meaning of love? The Christian thinks of love as submission, as can be seen by and can be seen by others as weakness. Uh, and then I'll continue. This gives rise to contempt in the minds of many because they see love, as Christians understand it, as being nothing more than a doormat for others to walk over, a form of cowardice. So let me repeat that. And I think I was trying to, as I said, I want to understand the question as well. So before I put it to you, so so the question or the question the listener has put forward, can you explain to the listeners the meaning of love? The Christian thinks of love as submission and can be seen, which can be seen by others as weakness. This gives rise to contempt in the minds of many because they see love as the Christians understand it as being nothing more than a doormat for others to walk over, as a form of cowardice. So I think what the listeners are saying, Gregory, is that when Christians talk about love, let's say forgiveness, um, it's like they're dismissing or overlooking somebody doing something wrong and just let them, almost like last week's question about when Jesus says, when somebody slaps you on one cheek, offer them the other cheek. But I know you said that was not taken to be taken literally, it was meant to be taken spiritually. So I don't want to repeat that here, but they're saying that the Christians, they seem to be very forgiving in and as if that is an expression of love, which means that others can take the advantage of that to be, they can do it again and again, so allowing them to walk over. And so others who are not Christian can see that and they feel that is a cowardice. I think that's what the question that the listener is saying. So now, is that what love is about, Gregory?
Again and again, the concept of love, part of it is vigilance. Vigilance in spirit, in thoughts, and in deeds. When the Lord's Prayer was given, He gave it in such a way with the strictest warning: forgive us our trespasses, as we ourselves trespass against others. That is no cowardice. For someone to be able to really forgive in deeds, in thoughts, and in one's intuition, that individual must be of great strength. That individual must be of high courage. If one recalls what Paul always said when he wrote to others, at the end he said, be of good cheer. For those who are of good cheer are those who strive after that which is of benefit to them, and in mediating that which they have received, also of benefit to others. So striving after that which is of benefit to yourself and subsequently mediating that which you have received for the benefit of others also, that is no mean feat. That requires courage. That requires fortitude. So many who interpret these things only look at things from their own way, their own low concepts. For they should know that the person who shows love as compared to as those who show hatred. Hatred pulls everybody apart. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. But that individual who overcomes himself to ensure that others, even in their limited understanding, are permitted to reflect again, that person must be of good cheer and of high courage. It is because many who do not understand the concept of love and the severity that comes with love, first, that severity not on others, but first on himself. It's because they are unable to grasp it, and that is why they see weaknesses. Whereas it is not weakness, but strength. So many a concept will have to be shattered and seen more from a spiritual standpoint rather than a very petty standpoint. For it is the one that is strong that is able to forgive, not the one who is weak. The one who is weak will hold on to it, whereas the one who is brave and is strong will forgive, sever the connection, and wish them well, but learns the necessary lessons in vigilance.
Thanks so much, Gregory, for this answer. You have said many times about seeing these concepts from a spiritual point of view, not how we normally see things in an earthly point of view. And when we do that, how can I say, when we see things from the earthly point of view, we never really get the right understanding. However, if we see these from the spiritual point of view, first of all, you have a wider view than your petty, like you say, petty earthly views of where we can have grudges and hatred and which keeps getting perpetuated with, just recycling the hurt that either is coming from you or is coming from somebody else. It just keeps recycling. It only brings you down further, and it's a heavy thing. Anybody knows that, holding a grudge. You think you're hating somebody else, but it's bringing you down. So when we say love your neighbor as yourself, you can see when you don't act that way, then look at the harm. You're thinking you're sending harm to someone else or taking revenge, but the harm is coming back to you. It's more painful for you. And what's the point of holding on and on to this vengeful thoughts, and when it's only bringing you down? So thank you for that. Dear listeners, I want to let you know you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Aprushim. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39. You can call, again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the homepage, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And as I've mentioned, we are broadcasting on blessradio1, the number 1.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space live stream. That is for the live show, which we broadcast on Tuesday evenings, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. You can also listen to a recording of this show, again on YouTube. Go to youtube.com. That is the next day. So you go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, again the number 1 there, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is love your neighbor as yourself. And you can listen to the recordings of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.fm/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, dear listeners, I want to let you know the way we come to this topic tonight, although it's a famous thing, the topic we have chosen tonight is love your neighbor as yourself. Of course, we know that Jesus said these words. We also, in our show, shared that this is also in Leviticus in the Old Testament. And then I also want to share with you that in the Grail Message, of course, it is many things are explained, the laws of creation, and a lot of things that Jesus has said have been explained in the Grail Message. And as Gregory has been saying, many of these concepts of what these words mean or statements mean has been really misunderstood, even distorted, to the point where it is even completely lost its real meaning. And so I thought I would like to read from the Grail Message a lecture which, although it's not specific to the directly about love your neighbor as yourself, but it does refer to it. And I just thought I will read, because the lecture is short, I thought I would read the whole lecture to share with you. And then there might be points where we could, Gregory, you can say some words on that. And I might even stop as I go in case I would like to discuss something there. So this is the lecture called chastity. In the Grail Message, it is at the beginning of the Grail Message in lecture number 11 of the Grail Message. So I will read that. Chastity is a concept that has been so unbelievably narrowed down by earthmen that absolutely nothing of its real meaning is left. It has even been dragged down onto a wrong course, and as the natural and inevitable consequence, this distortion has brought needless oppression and even very often untold suffering upon many people. Ask where you will what chastity is, and everywhere in reply you will find explained in one way or another the concept of physical virginity. In any case, this is the highest that the perception of earthmen can reach. This proves completely the inferior way of thinking of those who subordinate themselves to the intellect, which has itself set the limits to everything earthly, because it cannot reach any further with its faculties that are born of the earthly. How easy it would then be for man to be regarded as chaste and so create a reputation, while sunning himself in vain self-glorification. But this does not bring him one step upwards on the road to the luminous gardens, which as paradise are the blissful and the final goal of a human spirit. It is of no avail to earthman if he keeps his physical body chaste and defiles his spirit, which can then never cross the thresholds that lead upwards from one step to the next. Chastity is different from men's idea of it, far more comprehensive and greater. It does not demand that man should go against nature, for this would be an offense against the laws vibrating in God's creation and could only have harmful results. Chastity is the earthly concept of purity, which is divine. For every human spirit, it is the endeavor to manifest gross materially what is sensed as a reflection of something that really exists in the divine sphere. Purity is divine. Chastity, its representation by the human spirit. Thus, a spiritual image which can and should become evident in earthly conduct. This should suffice as a fundamental law for every matured human spirit in order to realize chastity. But on earth, urged on by many a selfish desire, man is inclined to imagine he possesses something which he actually does not, solely for the purpose of having his wishes fulfilled. Selfishness takes the lead and dulls the truly pure volition. Man will never admit this to himself, but simply allows himself to drift along. And when he can no longer persuade himself otherwise, he describes this very often obvious attempt to satisfy his questionable selfish desires as a decree of fate to which one must submit. Therefore, to guide and support him, he needs still other hints which will let him experience and recognize what in truth chastity is, as it lies in the will of God, who does not want any separation from nature on earth. I'm going to just stop there a moment there, Gregory, because I would like to just discuss what we have read so far. What I'm seeing here, um, there's chastity, and man on earth's idea about chastity is, well, in most cases, they would think it's being having physical virginity. That's what they think. However, we are being told it's much greater than that. In fact, this is such a distortion. What is the true meaning of chastity? It's which is meant to come from a spiritual concept. Not even this earthly is meant to be we're supposed to manifest the concept, the spiritual concept, into the earthly, and just restricting it purely to the physical, one has no clue what chastity really means. And Abdushin also says that one must there's laws of nature, and you say how nature behaves, you can say, and so that's like, let's say there are human, I don't know if I can use the word desires or nature activity of humans, where what does it mean if you say you want chastity, which means physical virginity, it means you cannot reproduce, if I can say a simple way, if you follow that directly like that, which completely goes against nature. So it sounds even stupid to think, for someone to say that is what chastity is meant to be. So Gregory, can you just say something on that, that how we have sort of how wrong we have misunderstood this word chastity. So is having, if I can say, sexual activity for reproduction, or whether it doesn't always result in reproduction, so is keeping chaste, meaning not keeping a virgin, as they say, is that being chaste, or still obeying law of nature, or not being, how can I say, having the desires of nature? Is that, how can one keep chaste? Because there seems to be a conflict there. That's what I'm saying, Gregory. So where is the distortion happen that we cannot be, let's say, align ourselves with nature and to fulfill the concept of this chastity?
Actually, there is no confusion at all. A misunderstanding of an expression, that misunderstanding comes from the individual. Therefore, it is the individual that must change to understand the concepts aright. Therefore, what you have there, what has been written, must first be assimilated and reflected on intuitively. Only through such will the individual come to a brighter understanding and may then look back at the quagmire it has sunk into due to either the distortions of the concept or the laziness, the spiritual indolence that it has imposed on itself. So, like you rightly said, the lecture is short, provides clarity. The individual must examine itself. For purity does not go against nature. Purity resonates with nature. If many are expecting that one should say do this or do that, that will not happen because they themselves must examine the world itself, examine in accordance with the laws through which they themselves even came into existence. So it's either all or nothing. Therefore, purity is. Charity a spiritual representation.
Sorry, Gregory, you mean chastity, not charity.
I mean, chastity a spiritual representation. Thank you very much. When one looks at it very calmly, every picture is a pointer. When it said every picture is a pointer, now the representation becomes, the concept of representation becomes very clear. That which is being pointed to is alive. Take the simple example of yourself. You take a photograph or a picture. That is only an instance. Right? It only shows certain features, physical features about yourself. That picture does not show your thoughts, does not show your perception, how you are breathing, does not represent how you hear things. So it's only a limited representation of the person, that person that is alive. And for one to come to know you properly, they have to interact with you. So one can see a picture and then the real thing. The picture is a pointer. That means the picture is more like a narrow representation or more like an earthly representation. So when chastity is mentioned, being a representation or an earthly representation of purity, purity which in itself is divine, becomes very clear. So one should not take one's word for it. Examine for yourself in deeds. Examine and weigh for yourself in thoughts. Examine and weigh for yourself in your intuition. Then in that process, enough heat will be generated within the individual for that process of weighing and examination is motion, which motion generates heat and enables you to ascend because the limited, cramped concepts are then gradually shoved aside, and the individual that is engaged in such activities becomes free. Now, maybe it's understandable when many said free at last. Indeed, the human personality must weigh and examine to become free at last.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this. Your words there. You're urging people to examine and weigh and examine themselves to get the real meaning for themselves, because effort is necessary. Your own personal effort is necessary to grasp these concepts correctly, aright, as we say. If we can't just give direct answer, because there has to be an effort on each person's to get to that point of understanding. What we are pointing already, that there cannot be a conflict between what nature is put there in this world and the principles in this creation. You know, um, all must align. The working of nature, the working of human beings must align, uh, and that's where we have to reach the right understanding. What I'm going to do now, I will continue to the end of this lecture, um, and there may be some other points that we can discuss after that. So, um, this is continuing reading from the lecture Chastity from the Grail Message. Therefore, to guide and support him, he needs still other hints which will let him experience and recognize what in truth chastity is, as it lies in the will of God, who does not want any separation from nature on earth. In the divine sphere, purity is closely united with love. Hence, if he is to derive blessing from them, man must not try to separate the two on earth either. But on earth, love is also no more than an evil caricature of what it really is. Thus, unless it first undergoes a change, it cannot unite with the true concept of purity. To all those who strive to attain chastity, I herewith give a hint which provides the support that man needs on earth in order to live uh, uh, in order to live in such a way as rests in the law of creation, and as is therefore also pleasing to God. He who in his actions always remembers not to harm his fellow man, who reposes trust in him, not to do anything that may later oppress him, will always act in such a way as to remain spiritually unburdened, and may therefore be called truly chaste. These simple words, rightly understood, can fully protect and guide man through the entire creation and lead him upwards into the luminous gardens, his true home. These words are the key to all rightful activity on earth, for genuine chastity lies in them. The Son of God Jesus expressed precisely the same in the words, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." But you must beware of falling back into the old human faults and of once more construing and partly distorting the meaning of the words so as to make them serve your own purpose, soothe you in your wrongdoing, and lull your fellow men into carelessness or even help to mislead them. Absorb such words as they're truly meant to be absorbed, not as appears convenient to you and suits your stubborn volition. Then for you there will be the key. Then for you there will be the keen. Sorry, I start again. Then for you there will be like the keenest sword in your hand, with which you can slay all darkness if you but will. Let them become alive within you in the right way, so that filled with gratitude you may grasp life on earth as jubilant victors. So, Gregory, that's the end of the lecture, by the way, listeners, of the lecture called Chastity in the Grail Message. So, Gregory, what I'm seeing here, when Jesus said, "Love thy neighbor as thyself," which means do not harm the neighbor. And then, of course, you and Abrushin is saying means the same way as being, let me say, he who in his actions always remembers not to harm his fellow man, who reposes trust in him, not to do anything that may later oppress him, will always act in such a way as to remain spiritually unburdened and may therefore be called truly chaste. So, Gregory, it's like our interaction with other fellow human beings has a automatically, how can I say, keeps us on the right way. I don't know how other way to put it right now. I'm just going to say it that way. And it makes you remain spiritually unburdened. That's the, let's say, the one of the key words being said here. So and I just want to ask on this point, Gregory, if what's in a way, all the words already answer themselves, so it's hard to ask a question. And I think you've been pointing that out, Gregory, already, that if we read this Grail Message or try to understand these concepts, if we you could say, absorb these words, there's eventually, at some point, they will land for us, that we will get to understand the meaning, what is behind them. Of course, we must strive and put our effort in, necessary effort for that. That is a condition, of course. Not just by reading alone will you get there. So what can I ask you here? I'm just wondering what question I can even ask you. So, Gregory, is there any advice or anything we can say, just let's say in a summary about this point of love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself?
Actually, it expresses itself, that there's no addition or subtraction to it, because it's so very clear. Since there is no one who does not love himself, therefore one should strive to ensure that that love which he himself harbors for himself, he should try to share it with others. Then one miracle or another will blossom forth, because the obstacles which he has held all this while, those obstacles will be dissolved. And before long, he becomes unburdened, not only in deeds, in thoughts, but also spiritually. Then he becomes chaste in his activities.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this your words there. Dear listeners, we come to the end of the show tonight on the topic of love your neighbor as yourself. Hope you've enjoyed the discussion. I think we've covered so many points there, and I could only say, please go and pick up the Grail Message, and look, weigh and examine for yourself. And if you want to do that, you can, if you want to get a copy of the Grail Message or want to get more information on the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And thank you for listening, and I hope you found this discussion enlightening. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Just wishing listeners a beautiful week ahead.
Thank you. Same from me, listeners. Have a beautiful week ahead. And we'll be back next Tuesday. It'll be a new month then March, with another topic. All the best to you. Good night and God bless.